Hey Jam, I'm Adaeze Fèyísàyò and thank you for tuning in to the Unself series. And our first episode, we're going to talk about how to stop people pleasing, stop being a good Nigerian woman. I will share these 7 tips on setting boundaries, how to set boundaries, how to identify your why. That's why are you people pleasing, talking about and giving you prompts for inner work. I would also discuss generational trauma, toxic cycles. We will practice how to say no. How do you set boundaries in Nigeria that has a respect culture, in quotes? That's all this particular episode will be discussing. If you like and enjoy topics like this and you enjoy the unself, consider subscribing so you can get conversations like this and notifications. All right, enjoy. Oftentimes when we talk about the Nigerian woman, 2 words are synonymous: labor and strength. About how she's hardworking, she's a disciplined mother, she's a good woman, she's a skilled cook, she's generous, she's giving. So it's always centered around labor and oftentimes lack of boundaries. That is what you see praised. You watch old Nollywood movies, even in films, books. Books oftentimes critique this, and we outright have books oftentimes praise this aspect. And the list goes on and on and on. And it's so sad because the general upbringing for the average Nigerian girl is baptism into slavery for patriarchy, if we're being honest. Girls are not taught how to be women and feminine and soft. Girls are taught with generational trauma responses and systems that protect them against trauma from men, which in itself is not wrong. But at the same time, girls are also taught to be mothers. They're not taught to be women, feminine, to balance the femininity and the masculine. They're taught to be mothers, which involves a lot of doing, a lot of labor. It's also one of the reasons why I think a lot of Nigerian women are so successful with businesses they run, whether it is small businesses or big businesses. And it may not be obvious because statistics shows the average woman who has children or is married spends 80 to 95% of our income on the family. How can you step into your power? And how can you utilize your labor for yourself? AKA femininity math. Do less, get more. Do nothing, get everything. How to apply these 2 equations basically in different scenarios. On strength versus power. To step into your power is to, first of all, realize your value. I think a lot of us were socialized to be afraid of our power and its influence in basically what we're told not to do as girls for our safety. And we may not have been in immediate danger, but this may have been perceived danger of women who have been disempowered under patriarchy and understand that we live in a very violent world that is structured to exploit us and endanger us. We're never not going to extend grace and forgiveness to the women who came before us. We forgive them for their choices that harmed us, intentional or unintentional. We extend grace because we now are young adults under capitalism and patriarchy, and we understand. But at the same time, there are certain levels of awareness, accountability you need to be able to extend compassion, grace, and forgiveness. That being said, genetically, we are our mother's daughters, our grandmother's granddaughters, and our aunties' nieces. Genetically, you can go and check up all the research on DNA and genetics that states that whatever habits, thoughts, processes that are encoded in a person's chromosome at the time when they concept and conceive a child will be passed on down to a child. So say, for example, if a mother had a child in a very abusive environment and their nervous system was stressed, they may send certain trauma responses and code generational trauma into the DNA of the daughter. And then, of course, a child born into that environment where the mother has to tiptoe around an abuser, be it financial abuse, physical abuse, domestic violence, psychological, emotional abuse, and then being socialized to act feminine, but around an abuser. Obviously, it's going to impact the person's psychology. And I think it's important I talk about this on labor strength of the Nigerian or African woman or mother per se, and also taking your power back and stopping people pleasing. From a Nigerian perspective, you need to really sit down and say, why am I nice to people? Why is it when I walk in a place, the first thing I do is I scan the environment, I look out for something unique and nice about somebody, and the first thing I do is compliment them. I don't introduce myself, I don't try and spark a genuine connection. I try to be likable first. That is a trauma response, because if someone has been in an environment where they've had to placate, oftentimes environments where men weaponize their moods against women, that means they don't want to be held accountable for spending the children's school fees on a business venture that's gone wrong. So they come back, they are moody, they complain about the food, they watch television on loud, they shout at their partner, their kids, they insult their kids, they belittle the labor, the domestic reproductive labor that women have spent hours doing. So when somebody grows up in that kind of environment, of course, the first thing they're going to do when they walk into a space is try to be likable. So now you have to ask yourself at the end of the day, what do I value as a person? If you were to tap me, I have a long list of core values, LOL, but they're all interconnected because you need one or two of the others to be able to have the other. But if I was to pick my core values, I would pick stability, I would pick ease, sustainability, I would pick freedom, and I would pick love, because God is love and we see the power of God's love. And I would also pick creativity. Right, so let's use those 6. Now those are my core values. So therefore, if complimenting somebody that I just met is not going to help me achieve any of those core values, does not align with my life's vision, I will not do it. I used to be such a huge person who did that. Oh, hi, oh my God, I love your earrings, I love your hair. Which is true, but at the end of the day, I had to really dig deep into that. I have a very noticeable magnetic aura, I'll put it that way. I think I came off as unapproachable or sparked insecurities in people's and experienced a lot of bullying. Started off secondary school, got worse university. So the bullying came off as social exclusion and negative things said about me behind my back. So I had to learn how to be likable by making other people feel comfortable in themselves. That's not my responsibility. My responsibility is to be cordial, is to be polite. Friendliness sometimes can disempower you, especially if you have good girl people pleaser tendencies. And oftentimes with good girl people please ourselves to cope under like abusive situations, toxic situations. Hey, hi Jam, break out of it. Break out of it. Let's break out of it. You see, toxic cycles that leave you in abusive environments. You're being literally pinned there to the ground with a stake called limiting belief. as a Nigerian young woman, I have to be strong all the time. My value and my worth is tied to how much labor I do, how I take care of people around me, how I give. That's not true. The Bible says we are beautifully and wonderfully created in the image of God. You inherently have value. You are valuable. You are the abundant resource. Respect that. You already have value. Coming on someone who has been a human rights advocate for quite some time, it's one thing to say, oh, we all have innate human rights, we all have value, we're all human. And it's another thing to really deep that on a personal level when on your journey as a woman. Like, you have value. Your value is not how good your efforiro is or how delicious and buttery and shiny and aromatic your jollof rice is. Your value is not how well you kneel down and greet people, how well you smile. Your value is not is not only in how much you give to your loved ones, your siblings, beggars, everything. Your value is not only in how you submit yourself to have your boundaries abused, eroded by systems that are there to exploit us. Like, hello, you have value. Innately, you have value. The fact that you exist, you have value. You, out of how many sperms and that one egg, out of so many hormonal menstrual cycles, you are here. God has kept you. You have value. Believe in yourself. Once you understand the value you have, you know your core values, and every day you work to ask yourself, oh, why do I do this? Feminine energy is about inner work. It's about finding balance. It's about building a trusting connection with God and healing your relationship with yourself and your intuition, right? And so at first I was like, oh my God, no, I think I'm good. I mean, I know I'm struggling. I struggle with consistency. I struggle with, fatigue and blah, 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 but I'm good. And then, I just listed observed behaviors. Things I observed that I knew when it was serving me, that did not make me happy. And let me tell you something, Jam. It started as one observed behavior, and then I wrote out, how does this behavior manifest mentally and physically? I started noticing that when I want to set a boundary, my body literally shakes. My heart rate speeds up. My palm gets sweaty. I'm panicky. I'm afraid that that boundary will not be respected. And that has been going on for a couple of years. Like, while I was at my old workplace before I resigned, I would set my boundaries with a lot of righteous anger within myself. But I'll come off neutral when I could have set boundaries in kindness and love with myself, and also communicated in kindness and love to others, while also understanding their perspective of why they need access to my valuable input at that time, and how, I'm not there to give that to them. So let me give you something one of my coaches taught me, Antoinette. Ask yourself, number 1, do I have the capacity? Number 2, do I have the capability? Am I capable? I know one of the affirmations I always say is, I am capable, but am I capable in that moment to do this for that person? And do I want to do this? Sometimes we have the capacity to do things, we have the capability, but we don't want to do it. But we're like, you know what? Because we're conditioned that our own interests, our own desires are irrelevant when serving the greater good. Practice it. Say no. Right now, as you're listening to me, say no. Good. I'm proud of you. Say no. I value myself. I value my time. I value my labor. I value my energy. And at this moment, I don't have the capacity, capability, and neither do I want to do this. All of this I just said is for yourself, in your mind. When the nagging fear and guilt creeps up, or your body is quaking because it's not used to this, remind yourself, I am safe. It is safe for me to say no. I value my boundaries. I respect my boundaries. It is safe for me to say no. I am not in imminent danger. Okay? I just want to remind you of something. Do not put other people on a pedestal. The only person that should be on a pedestal in your life is God. When you look towards others thinking, oh, I will influence them with my acts, my actions, my behavior, my posturing, so that they favor me, that is idolatry and witchcraft. That's winchy. I said it. You should only put your focus on God. Be who you are. Align with your authentic self, how God created you. Heal yourself. Pray to God to heal you and align yourself with God. And I assure you, you'll be elevated. Okay, thank you for listening to this episode. Bye, Jam.